This week in comic books, we get a lesson in utilitarianism and deontology from Batman. We haven't really talked about that kind of stuff in a while. We're going to hit that up. Also, in the land of Marvel, I finally read another Captain America comic book and have no idea why, because has very little to do with Captain America. Also, in the independent world, we get Dark Interlude, which is a fourth wall breaking story of a story that's meta and it's satirical in nature. That's a lot of big words for basically a guy's making fun of assholes. That's all that. Some awkward sips of coffee. Some awkward glances at you to see if you get the punchline. And that great intro. What's going on, you wonderful weirdos? I'm Pocan Joe, and as always, you're super cool for swinging by. If this is your first time on the show, basically what I do is I pick up a bunch of comic books. This week it's a rather large quantity. I was going to say load, but I know the 5-year-olds out there would have started laughing. Pick up a bunch of comic books, I read through them, and then I pontificate what I find in them to you, and I make an obscure reference if they are good or bad at that point. And then sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't. Definitely comment down below, either way. So without further ado, let's jump into this. We're going to talk about Justice League. This is the tie-in to the whole death metal thing, if you've been reading that. It's not overly important, but there are hints of things that are important in here, especially before you jump over into death metal. Like, for instance, why are all these villains all of a sudden helping the heroes? That kind of gets explained in here. Also, Lobo's intent on using the special metal to help destroy everything. That gets explained in here, how that relationship works as well, and is very much broken down. But all in all, the story itself just seemed kind of weird. It's like once the Legion of Doom and our not Justice League characters join forces, this whole Omega Knight thing that was this big threat gets dispatched relatively easy. All of a sudden that plot device was used good enough, so now we can toss it aside with some fictitious laser beam from Sinestro. That was the big beat. A lot of this was internal monologue and speeches about what makes a good guy, and why we should trust Lex Luthor. Like, that should even be a conversation. The answer is no. No, no, you shouldn't trust him. I don't care what the speech is. I don't care how important he is. No, you shouldn't trust him, and you should always keep him at a yardstick away, pretty much. Let's see here. Oh, I'm super happy about this particular cover. Dark Knight's Death Metal number 5. I've been collecting the band one, and look at that. Aquaman has to be the guy in the keyboard. You know, the guy that nobody pays attention to in a rock band. The guy in the keyboard. Kind of like Aquaman, the one that nobody pays attention to as well. Anyway, let's jump into the story because he's not really featured in it. In this, we get what we kind of saw in that one transition over to here. There's a big epic speech from the Robin King about how the Wonder Woman on his Earth gave an epic speech, and it started like your typical Wonder Woman speech, brothers and sisters of, the world Earth, yada yada, and then he goes through it and then carefully dismantles it as well, and it's hilarious. But in this, we do get a brothers and sisters speech from Wonder Woman at the same time. You want to talk about calling out your own meta narrative? That's something there. Good job, writer. And of course, they're going to have their epic moment where they're going to try to beat Perpetua and the One Who Laughs all in one fell swoop. By the way, what happened to Perpetua and the One Who Laughs' big cosmic fight? Why did that stop all of a sudden? Loopholes, narrative holes, actually, because that entire thing was completely just kind of, nah, we don't need to discuss that anymore. We know they fought. Yeah. Rorschach number 2 came out this week. Cool cover. Skull cover for all you skull collectors skull cover collectors out there. We're going to try that. That seems to work a little better. We get a little bit more insight into our old man that was dressed up like Rorschach. Come to find out, he's a comic book creator. Very heavy in postmodernism through a lot of comic books this week. Very weird. And apparently he was kind of a loner. He was also jaded by the woman he loved and even her husband at that point, and killed him, apparently. Also, why did he team up with some young girl in Oklahoma? Well, don't worry, that's what issue 3 is going to explain to us. Hopefully, maybe. We did get a creation of a comic book in here with a character that looks suspiciously more like the Question than he did Rorschach, but for obvious reasons, it's a Rorschach story. Because it's in the title. That would be the obvious. I know. On that note, let's have an awkward sip of coffee real quick. Man, you just can't beat a good cup of coffee in the afternoon. I'm telling you, especially on a cold day. All right. So now I've tried to bring what philosophy I see inside of comic books, and I try to bring it to you as great examples. And this week, of course, from Batman, we got another great example of philosophy, more especially utilitarianism versus deontology. These are the grassroots of philosophy. These are like the two base. If you took a semester of philosophy, these are kind of like the two foundations of all philosophy. They kind of sprout out from there, from everything from flippism to postmodernism and everything else. And this is, of course, in Batman number 103. So we have Ghostmaker. We see him. We kind of find out that this guy's not really, he's not a bad guy. Like, he's bad in the story, but he's not a bad guy, if that makes any sense. He's just going against Batman in this. And what we find out that he's the living embodiment of deontology, right? The ends justify the means. Think of it that way. It's the best way to think of it, right? Whatever it takes to make this go away, that's what needs to happen within this focus to make it happen. Boom, right? And then utilitarianism is, well, we need to look at the bigger picture and the greater affect of the ends. In other words, the ends don't justify the means, the outcome justifies the means. So, and this gets explained through their actions on how they solved certain crimes. So Ghostmaker went around, apparently put away a serial killer, stopped a drug, or I'm sorry, not a drug, but a arms dealing corporation, and some corrupt judges, and kind of showed Superman, or not Superman, but showed Batman that, he's like, all this stuff is happening under your nose, it's kind of a thumb up to him. And then Bruce, or Batman, kind of explains back that we're all part of a bigger picture, that we wanted to net everything, and all you managed to do was solve one piece where we wanted to solve the puzzle. Also, we get a quick bout in here from Clown Killer and Harley Quinn. They kind of go at it a little bit, but of course that gets disrupted by Ghost Hunter and Batman's battle at the same time. So I guess the question is, where do you stand? Are you more towards deontology or more towards utilitarianism? Is ultimately the question, because you're going to find yourself kind of conflicted here. We want to believe that Ghostmaker's the bad guy in this, but is he? Definitely. Let me know your thoughts down below. It would be interesting. Also, they keep making fun of Ghostmaker's name in here, which is kind of good. It is kind of like something you'd see in an old 80s movie like Airwolf or something. It's like, oh no, Ghostmaker's coming. So, good stuff. Symbiote Spider-Man. So this was, I don't know how to put it, okay? I think it's going to be the word for it. I think my fear of this, I guess I should say, is that there's a little too much going on in here. Like, we got Rocket Raccoon jumping into the mix for random reasons, because we know we have a cosmic problem coming. We have, who else is in this? A lot of people. A lot of things get referenced in here. My favorite one is the Shadow reference from Lamont Cranston. He was the originator of the Shadow, the old radio show, and that kind of gets referenced in here too. We're dealing with the black symbiotes and all this other stuff. Also, symbiotes don't understand why Spider-Man is fighting them in this one, because they consider him to be a brother. Traps get laid out. We got a little bit of Watcher action in here. We got Kang in here, and we got Rocket Raccoon, and then we got Null coming at the same time, plus Spider-Man. And like a typical Spider-Man story, it's just jam-packed with stuff going on, with internal monologues constantly happening of what's happening through his thoughts at this time. My dog is losing its mind. It's like every time I record this show, my dog jumps in with that hacking cough thing. It's the only time she does it. Oh, shoot that dog. Anyway, so I was able to get my hands on this 1 in 25 cover. I think that's just a super sleek, cool cover. Super happy to get this. So right now this is okay if they can like streamline this kind of mess that's going on right now. Like there's a lot going on in this book. So hopefully they can streamline it, make a little sense, especially with Noel coming. So throwing the BS flag. If I had a cool little thing that would blow up like I do over at Blaster Stash It. Oh, by the way, Blaster Stash It, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the YouTubes. Myself, Spectacular Spider Grandpa Huey, we're going to do a live review of all these books where you can jump into the chat and give us your opinions about the comic books that you read. So, Amazing Spider-Man, throwing out the BS flag on this one. All right, so first we get kind of cheated, right? Kindred is actually Harry Osborn, right? We get that. And then he's got like these cool supernatural powers, so we're thinking he's otherworldly. He's got the mummified face rocking, right? He's like a scary dude, right? He's got centipedes. Well, he just took a mask off in this one, which I'm calling BS on. Because if you look at the past issues, whenever you saw the mouth or the gums happen, it was like that kind of weird, you know, like shrunken skin, like everything's pulled back. And he pulls off, he's got like normal lips and everything going on. And I'm like, So, yeah, that happened. So they finally confront. He takes his mask off and he's like, ha ha ha, you kind of knew it was me all along, didn't you? And I'm like, oh God, this is not good. I'm just not happy with this. like you had a cool concept, you had a cool villain, like you had some really cool stuff, and then all of a sudden you just want to, you know, flick off your fans and be like, nah, it's not real. Sorry about your luck. Bye. So, yeah. And this is the 1 in 10. Apparently, this wasn't... A lot of people didn't know this cover was coming out, according to my comic book store when he showed it to me. And I was like, yeah, I'm still not paying $20 for it. so, luckily, we struck a deal. All right, moving on. Fantastic Four. So, this is the 1 per store variant cover of this. Why do they have a 1 per store variant cover? I don't know. It's basically, you know, they built that gate that can go anywhere in the universe, and they sent out a beacon, and then like all these ships are showing up. Why are they showing up? Well, there was a villain that they fought back in issue 1 that kind of has a problem with the Fantastic Four. They defeated her and stranded her, and apparently she's been wreaking havoc on that part of the universe. Well, that's your catch-up, right? And mustard. But what happened is she came through the gate as well, apparently, and going to cause all kinds of problems. So this entire thing was nothing more than an interlude to a big event that's about to happen with the Fantastic Four that don't really deal with anything else that's going on in their time frame, if that makes sense. That's my alarm. So all in all, it was an okay story. We get some clobbering time, of course. We get the Human Torch and his soul bond mate. Come to find out, it's not the first time he's been married, and he had to explain that to her, and apparently that's a problem because, you know, when you randomly get soul bonded by a computer on another world, you know, I guess maybe it didn't have that data. Stupid. But regardless, it's not a bad story. And we get our 2 kids interacting in here as well. So, cool stuff, fun, but definitely a launching point. And also, that is just a cool cover. Like, that's probably one of my favorite ones this week. Immortal Hulk. This is purposely not in plastic because my wife collects Scotty Young covers. So we kind of get some Joe Fixit action in here in his regular human form because that's a thing in this one. And we get a mysterious general who we're supposed to know, but I don't recognize him. And he escapes his clutches. That's it. That happened. That's the whole story in here. Oh, Gamma Flight showed up again, because Gamma Flight? Yeah, Doc Samson is in the body of, Bigfoot, something or other, Sasquatch. Whatever that Alpha Flight character was that nobody cared about. Because we keep shoehorning those characters in here, because we care. Wife's getting that one. Okay. Captain America. Hey, guess what doesn't happen in this? Anything cool with Captain America. Because Coates can't write a Captain America story. Because whammon. Even going back to the 1940s. Whammon. Okay, that's it. And so, yeah, these are your 3 stories this week from Sword of X. I'm going to break this down for you. A bunch of more ridiculous competitions that make no sense whatsoever. 0. White Witch shows a little compassion. Basically, 2 people had to fight to the death, and basically it came down to I guess a death of the spirit is just as bad. Dun dun dun. And I was like, no, not really. You can recover from that. You can't recover from death. We also get a crybaby moment from our youngster Cable here, who has to go run and talk to mommy and daddy mentally, because he can't actually run and go talk to them, about how he lost to Blood Moon. And he didn't want to kill Blood Moon because she's married. Remember that competition, the marriage competition from my review from last week? That kind of made him twitch in this one, where he couldn't get the upper hand or whatever. And then a bunch of other ridiculous competitions happened too. Because, over at Hellions, we get why Sinister was so determined about going to the other world, and it was to collect mutant genes and bring them back, and totally screwed over his entire Hellion team and damn near killed them all. And we meet an interesting character in here who has a group of C-list villains at best that will be forgotten in the near future when this entire series hits the dollar bin, possibly quarter bin, depending on where you're from. And last but not least, we finally get to the final battle. I'm not sure why we're on the final battle right now, because we're only on number 17? Was it 17 or 18? 16? Yeah. So yeah, and XForce. So yeah, Apocalypse and his ex-wife or wife, Genesis, finally square off. And they basically tell the White Witch to shut up. We know we're next, and we know it's to the death. Right? Interesting thing that did happen in here, Gorgon has got to fight the White Sword. Now, I mentioned the White Sword. He's probably the only one on the otherworldlies that I actually kind of like. He's like this necromancer, brings people to death, keeps their soul inside of him to fight as his army. So he's got to fight Gorgon, a seasoned warrior. And so the score was like 19 to, let's just say 3 or 4, whatever the case is, some ridiculous number. So this White Sword guy is like, all right, you get to fight me and 100 of me, right? He sends out like each warrior at a different time, and Gorgon's just chopping through this stuff like a Ginsu knife through a salad, right? He's just chopping right through them all, but it's wearing him down, obviously. But what they didn't realize is the White Witch is keeping score. Every time Gorgon kills somebody, our heroes get a point, because there's no real rules in this. We're just making it up as we go along. Mind you, I'm saying good things about this book. So it gets all the way up to where the X-Men are like 1 point ahead or whatever, right? So it's like 18 to 19, right? So finally the White Swordsman, or the White Sword, goes up to Gorgon. He's basically just standing there worn out and like sticks a sword at him, tying the score 19 to 19 to ensure in our plot that the score is tied and the true fate of everything is broken down to Genesis and Apocalypse. Genesis, the beginning. Apocalypse, the end. Yeah, there's your metaphor for the day. Let's get an awkward sip of coffee on that one. So, I don't know what to think of this. I think it's too neatly wound up, and I'm not sure how the final battle is going to stretch over, I don't know, about another 3 issues. Good luck with that one. I don't know. And also, I gave these to you in the wrong order. It was there, and then there. That's how that broke out. Not that it matters. It really doesn't. It's a mess. All right, independent comic books this way. What I said at the beginning of the movie, or the beginning of the show, in my pre-intro, this is interesting. This kind of turns its nose up to literary experts, if you will, using overgrammar, well, no, that's not even a word, pontificating way too much on their own verbiage inside of a story, and the use of tropes and plot devices to tell a story from a man who was essentially defamed for plagiarizing. So he's writing the sequel to a book that he didn't mean for it to be a sequel. If that sounds confusing, I'm sorry. That is a literal review of this book and why it is great. I love its kind of just metaphorical look, and it breaks the fourth wall to the reader. So it's like Don Quixote, Deadpool, and awesome show, good job if you're a fan of Adult Swim. And it kind of all takes place in kind of like a medieval type story. So even if you like fantasy, it's meta upon fourth wall breaking, snarky fun is the best way to review this. I love this book. This is my pick of the week. Next, something is killing the children. So the Order of St. George is decided that this town needs to just be cleansed, if you will, because they know about the monsters that no adult is supposed to see and that the Order tries to keep quiet about. That's not going to happen. So now they're showing up. They're going to start trouble. My biggest critique of this book is you don't really get a whole lot out of each issue. It seems like you're just given a very small premise through several pages of the story. I kind of like and I kind of hate that at the same time because it leaves for a great expanse of what you think is going on in the story, and then of course the story does its best to turn those thoughts around for the most part. But awesome story. It's still good regardless, and I really enjoyed this week. So definitely, if you're not reading that, you may be a little lost. I'm trying to talk louder than my dog now because it's not catching a hint. Are you, Xena? Yeah, she's not catching a hint. All right, last but not least, a story I have been following for a while now, Once and Future, number 13. This brings up something very interesting. If you're a reader of literary works over the years, you know that there are several versions of like King Arthur and several versions of things like Beowulf. But then there's also like in the literary world, they would kind of do tie-ins with these stories too, even way back during medieval times. And they would do it in the form of poems. And one of the most famous poems of all time with King Arthur kind of introduced a character by the name of the Green Knight, or as he goes by his moniker, the Tester of Men. This is a very fascinating character. Even scholars today still debate the role of the Green Knight in its literary context because it's a very confusing character. It's like you don't know if he's a good guy, bad guy, or if he's just an example of humanity, or if he's some form of witchcraft or witch. There's been all kinds of arguments about this particular character throughout King Arthur's lore. But definitely he was meant to challenge knights to see if they were knightly or manly. There's no debate to that. So this is really good because they introduced the character now, and he literally starts off with some hooligan. Do you want to play a game? And the guy's like, scrub off, you wanker, or whatever they say over there. And of course, he chops his head off and slices it, throws it in there, and he gets introduced. And he's even green in here. So that was really cool. I really like the way they take these obscure literary works and kind of twist them into its own story. Even its own self-identification of the story is even interesting. I like this. This is smart. I would definitely check this out. If you haven't, you definitely want to start at issue 1. Otherwise, you're going to get lost. I really love the connection between Beowulf and King Arthur that they made in here. And then throwing in the poem with the Green Knight as well. I look forward to see what other little nuances they're going to kind of shove in here for us. This is always a joy. Plus, there's something funny about an old granny with a foul mouth, a petition to drinking, and smokes weed in a nursing home with a gun while she's shooting birds, especially magpies. That happened in here. It's good stuff. All right, guys, that's my haul for this week. What did you think of the books I picked up? Did you read any of them? Do you have any opinions? Come on over Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the YouTubes, where myself, Spectacular Spider Grandpa, and Huey's Comics, we're going to have a conversation about this. Love to see you in the chat. We always do our best to recognize everybody in the chat, especially if they want to talk comic books. Definitely agree to disagree or just agree, regardless. So stay safe. Stay healthy and stay away from one another so we can see you again. Talk to you later. Bye.